because I spit when I talk. Be there at your own risk. Okay, that's right. What? ESV, English Standard Version. ESV, English Standard Version. I don't do that Christian Standard stuff. All right. English Standard. So, yeah, I don't know. Yeah, that's a good. I guess so. Got Megan and Dowdy out there. Yeah, we'll give them a few minutes. I think that was probably the most stressful thing for her. Yeah, the finding the mother of the groom's dress, that was probably one of the more stressful things for you. In I was gonna say both of them, but all of them, four of them. All right, we'll go ahead and get started, and they can catch up. Let's pray, and we'll get started. Dear Heavenly Father, I love you so much, and I'm so glad that again we get to gather and dig into your word. Heavenly Father, I just pray that what we say honors and glorifies you. I pray that what we do is applied to our lives. I pray that you open our hearts and our minds to your words tonight, dear Lord, and just let me get out of the way, and let you shine through. In your name I pray. Amen. All right, so we are going to be starting in chapter 3 of Esther. But just as a review, we have King Ahasuerus, which is actually King Xerxes of the Persians and the Medes. We have Mordecai, who is a Jewish clerk, basically, in his court. And he is the cousin of Esther, but he's raising Esther as his own daughter because Esther's parents have passed. So there's an age gap there. We also have Haman, who we're starting in on tonight. Boo, that's right. Who's also known as Memucan. Right? We have Queen Vashti, who refused to honor the king's request to come in and present herself to the king and his court after 7 days of drinking. And because of that, she was no longer queen. And she couldn't come in to see him anymore. Darn. And Memucan came up with the brilliant idea that, hey, let's send out a decree to all the nations that women have to respect their husbands. Because this is going to get out, women are going to get ideas, and we can't have that. So we'll do that, and we will then also gather up all the beautiful virgins in the country and send them to you, and you get to peruse through them until you find one that you think would make a great queen. They do that, and Esther is chosen because she finds favor with the eunuch and finds favor with King Ahasuerus. She is chosen queen, and soon after that, Mordecai uncovers a plot to kill King Ahasuerus that he hears at the gate. And he tells Esther, who tells the king's life is saved. It's written down in the book of the Chronicles of the Kings of the Persians and the Medes, and that brings us to chapter 3. Questions? Comments? Dun, 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 dun. All right. So let's look at chapter 3. We'll start in verse 1. It says, after these things, that's after Mordecai saves the king's life. It says, after these things, King Ahasuerus promoted Haman, the Agagite, the son of Hammedatha, and advanced him and set his throne above all the officials who were with him. And all the king's servants who were at the king's gate bowed down and paid homage to Haman, for the king had so commanded concerning him. But Mordecai did not bow down or pay homage. Then the king's servants who were at the king's gate said to Mordecai, why do you transgress the king's command? And when they spoke to him day after day, he would not listen to them. They told Haman, in order to see whether Mordecai's words would stand, for he had told them that he was a Jew. And when Haman saw that Mordecai did not bow down or pay homage to him, Haman was filled with fury. But he disdained to lay hands on Mordecai alone, so as they made known to him the people of Mordecai, Haman sought to destroy all the Jews, the people of Mordecai, throughout the whole king of Ahasuerus. Let's stop right there. All right, so we have Haman. He's an Agagite, the second highest official in the kingdom. It's very interesting that Mordecai uncovers the plot to kill him, and Haman gets promoted. That's the sequence of events we have here. Now, it's important to remember that Haman, they call him the Agagite because he's a descendant of King Agag, the Amalekite, whom Saul was supposed to wipe out the Amalekites when he fought them, and he saved King Agag and a few of the choice people there, and did not kill him. So Saul did not do the job that he was supposed to do, hence we have Haman. And Mordecai is a Benjaminite, a son of Kish, who was the tribe of Saul. Kish was Saul's dad. So Esther is therefore a Benjaminite. So Esther is going to have to clean up the job that Saul did not do way back in the day. So that's the drama going on. That's the backstory, the tea, I guess, right? All right. Okay. And Haman had a problem with Mordecai. What was it? Would not bow to him. How dare he? And why wouldn't Mordecai bow? He's a Jew. And I looked this up because I thought it was very interesting that he could get away with it. Because the king had commanded that he bow down, and yet Mordecai said, no, I'm not going to do it. I'm a Jew. And I got no really good reason why, except the fact that he was a Jew, and Jews would not bow down. It'd be like bowing down to a false god. And they said it was because Haman actually put himself out there. He wore an idol necklace, is the folklore that goes along with it. So Mordecai would be bowing down to an idol, and Haman put himself up almost in a godlike stature, and Mordecai was having nothing of it. Even when the peer pressure came along, and day after day after day, people said, hey, why don't you bowing down? He's a Jew. And that's all he felt like he needed to say. He's like, I'm just not going to do it. And he kind of held his ground. I think it's very interesting to note that he has told Esther time and time and time again, don't tell anybody you're a Jew. But he goes, I'm a Jew. And he has no problem with it. And we'll kind of get into that a little bit. So Mordecai wouldn't bow down because he's a Jew and all that sort of stuff. So what was Haman's solution? Yeah. We're not just going to get rid of Mordecai. We're going to get rid of all the Jews. Sounds like a good plan. Now, and here is his plan, starting in verse 7. In the first month, which is the month of Nisan, in the 12th year of King Ahasuerus, which, stop right there, we started Esther in the 3rd year of King Ahasuerus, so we're now 9 years down the road. Every time I've read this book, I've just assumed it's a really tight time schedule, but it's about a decade. So we've got 9 years now. So in the 12th year of King Ahasuerus, they cast pur, that is, they cast lots before Haman day after day, and they cast it month after month till the 12th month, which is the month of Adar. Then Haman said to King Ahasuerus, there is a certain people scattered abroad and dispersed among the peoples in all the provinces of your kingdom. Their laws are different from those of every other people, and they do not keep the king's laws, so it is not to the king's profit to tolerate them. If it please the king, let it be decreed that they be destroyed, and I will pay 10,000 talents of silver into the hands of those who have charge of the king's business, that they may put it into the king's treasuries. So the king took his signet ring from his hand and gave it to Haman the Agagite, the son of Hammedatha, the enemy of the Jews. I love how his name gets longer and longer and longer and longer as we go along. And the king said to Haman, the money is given to you, the people also, to do with them as it seems good to you. Okay, So his plan is to kill all the Jews. Does that sound like good critical thinking on Haman's part? Like logical thinking? Mordecai's really ticking me off. He won't bow down to me. I think I'll kill all the Jews. Little extreme, maybe? Maybe he has some anger issues going on. But what does it tell us about Haman? That that's his go-to. Is this hatred of the Jews a new thing? Absolutely, yeah. I mean, he's been steeped in that. He still claims to be an Agagite. So he's tracing his history all the way back to that day. And you go back to Memucan in the first chapter when he said, okay, the queen won't come out. Let's just send a decree out. Not just punish the queen, we're going to punish all women in the country. He has a little. He gets a little extreme and goes a little overboard really quick. He goes 0 to 90. Yes. So we kind of start to see a pattern with Haman's thinking. He doesn't think small. He thinks in very big ideas and really over the top. Because again, one of the themes here is the absurdity of the wicked. And that is about as absurd as you get. This man ticked me off. Let's kill everybody like him. The queen didn't do what she was supposed to do. Let's send a decree to all the women out there that they have to obey their husbands. So it's a very absurd reasoning that's going on in Haman's brain. And that tells us a lot. Now, so Haman starts to deliberate before. How long does he deliberate? He starts in the first month, and in the 12th month, they go and talk to him. A year. And for a year, they're casting lots. They're rolling the dice. It's basically like rolling dice to see if you get a favorable idea. Like, yeah, you got that magic 8 ball going. Is it a good idea to talk to King Assuerus? Maybe, okay, not today. But so I don't know exactly what lots are, but it's the idea of we're going to throw these things out and they're going to tell us when the right time is or the right thing to do. And why would it take a year to get a favorable outcome from these casting of lots? I mean, odds would tell you that it shouldn't take 12 months doing it every day. Who's in control of the dice or the lots? Yeah, it's all in God's timing. We see casting of lots is not an uncommon thing throughout the Bible. We see the disciples do it when they have to pick a new disciple to take Judas's place. We see it in the Old Testament. They would cast lots to decide things. So it's not necessarily I grew up, my grandfather was just appalled when we brought Trivial Pursuit into this house because it had dice. Dice were evil and cards were evil because that was gambling. But who knew Trivial Pursuit could be of the devil? But so was Petra, the Christian rock band, I found out when I went to their concert. But that ages me greatly. But we see that God is in control of these dice, and we see it, again, God uses those things in good ways throughout the history of the Jewish people. So that's why I think we just need to, when we get our pastor search committee together, we just need to get resumes out and start casting lots, and that's how we'll figure it out. Oh, okay, what was it? Share it with the class. Okay. Yeah, should it be? I'm sure they put like dates and months on. I would assume they put a month and days, and they'd shake it, and it wouldn't come what they thought was. I don't know. Yes, yeah. Oh, no, no, no. They were physically, yeah, casting the lots. Yeah. No, no, no. They were physically doing it, and it took them 12 months to get the right day, which I think is great because God is using that time to prepare everybody. And I just think that's pretty cool that God is in control of that. There's not a thing that God is not in control of, and we see that throughout Esther. So, what proposition did Haman give King Ahasuerus? What was his idea? Yeah, and I think what was he said they don't follow your laws, but what law was not being followed? Yeah, bow to me. Yeah, by how many people? One. Yeah, but we'll stretch that broad brush. We're painting with a broad brush for Haman, right? And he was going to pay for their execution. How much was he going to pay? 10,000 talents. At the rate of silver today per ounce, that's almost $43 million that he's putting up for this. So he's pretty serious about it. And he's also very wealthy. Yeah, I could live on that. I'm just throwing that out there. And he wanted to eliminate because they didn't follow his laws, but the real reason was what? He didn't like Mordecai. He was mad at Mordecai. I'm mad at this guy. I have this past about and angry about the Jews. I'm going to use this opportunity because of Mordecai to take them all out. Oh, absolutely. Oh, yeah, absolutely. This guy isn't going to bow down to me. Yeah. Yes. Yes, yeah. Yeah, he's like, oh, but King, listen, these guys are terrible. They won't follow your laws. That's going to hit me hard if I'm the king. They're, no, yeah, which either tells you King Xerxes was gullible, which I don't believe at all, or he really trusted Haman. Haman's number 2 in there. He was one of the 7 in the first chapter that were always in the presence of the king, and now he's number 2. He puts his trust in him. If Haman says it, okay, I'm going to believe it. And I love the king's response is, you want to kill a whole bunch of people in my kingdom? Okay, give me $42 million. I'll be happy. And he sends a decree out to all the provinces and all the languages and gives Haman control over everybody and anything that he needs, all the resources. Now, when this is happening, where is God in all this? Yeah. Is he oblivious to what's going on? No. But how many times when something bad is happening, we assume God doesn't know or God isn't seeing it? We get that, woe is me, God doesn't know, God doesn't love me, God doesn't understand. Did God understand this situation? Did he love the Jewish people then? Does he still? I shouldn't say then. But so it wasn't like he was just hands off. He's got a plan. And I'm sure it didn't make sense to Mordecai. And Haman thought he was doing the greatest thing in the world. I'm sure in World War II, when they're rounding up the Jews and all this sort of stuff, they were thinking, where is God in all of this? But we see God was in control of all that too. And God did miraculous things to stop the armies in World War II, and that's a whole other thing, and Jeremy can get into that next week. But so God is there even when we don't see him, when we don't feel him, when we don't understand. God is still there, and God is still in control. He controlled those lots. He picked the day that this is all going to go down. God had it in control. And yeah, if I'm Mordecai, I'm going, what are you thinking, God? But God's smarter than I am. All right, chapter 3, verse 12. Let's get there. It says, then the king's scribes were summoned on the 13th day of the first month, and an edict according to all that Haman commanded was written to the king's satraps and to the governors over all the provinces, to the officials of all the peoples, to every province in its own script and every people in its own language. It was written in the name of King Ahasuerus and sealed with the king's signet ring. Letters were sent by couriers to all the king's provinces with instructions to destroy, to kill, and to annihilate all Jews, young and old, women and children, in one day, the 13th day of the 12th month, which is the month of Adar, to plunder their goods. A copy of the document was issued as a decree in every province by proclamation to all the peoples to be ready for that day. The couriers went out hurriedly by order of the king, and the decree was issued in Susa the citadel, and the king and Haman sat down to drink, but the city of Susa was thrown into confusion. Okay, when is this going to take place? When is this destruction of the Jews going to happen? 13th day of the month of Adar, which is a year from when he approaches King Ahasuerus with the plan. So they have a year to prepare, to get everybody ready, to get everybody in place, for everybody to make their plan, all right? And who is going to be affected by this decree? The Jews. All the Jews. Yeah. Yeah, you're affected by, yeah. And I love how they said they would be destroyed, killed, and annihilated. Not just killed, not just destroyed, not just annihilated, all of them. And you get to keep their stuff. You want to motivate some neighbors? Say, hey, you do something to them, you get to keep their stuff. And there's no repercussions on you. That's a way to get people on your side. Stuff, right? And I love that it was sent out to all these people. Haman and Ahasuerus sit down to drink. And what else? What's going on in the city? Why is there confusion? Do you think there's a couple Jews in the city of Susa, in the capital? Because what has God told them when they went into exile? Build houses, plant gardens, marry, give your children in marriage, prosper, pray for the city you're in. Jews anywhere they go, they have prospered throughout history. They went to Israel. They went to Israel. Duh. Abraham comes down. He prospers. He comes down from Ur. He prospers in the Promised Land. They go to Egypt. They prosper. They get so big, the Pharaoh's scared of their power. Right? They go. He kicks them out. Kicks them out. They leave. They go to the Promised Land. Then they get exiled up here. They're prospering here too. Mordecai is part of the king's court. He is an integral part of what happens in the capital city. So if the Jews are prospering and praying for people and doing all this sort of stuff, there's a lot of them. And, when you tell, oh, hey, you can go kill your neighbor next year. Don't do it yet. You'll get in trouble if you do it today. But in a year, make a good plan. It's like The Purge, I guess. Yeah. I had a blank right there. What's the name of that movie? Yeah. Exile, but yes, they've been. Am I next? Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. That's a crazy order. Hey, let's kill a whole bunch of people in our own country. Yeah, in 12 months. Yeah, let's think this through. Yeah. So and all the time, Haman and the king are drinking. That's a common theme too throughout this. All right. Chapter 4 says, when Mordecai learned all that had been done, Mordecai tore his clothes and put on sackcloth and ashes, and went out into the midst of the city, and he cried out with a loud and bitter cry. He went up to the entrance of the king's gate, for no one was allowed to enter the king's gate clothed in sackcloth. And in every province, wherever the king's command and his decree reached, there was great mourning among the Jews, with fasting and weeping and lamenting, and many of them lay in sackcloth and ashes. When Esther's young women and her eunuchs came and told her, the queen was deeply distressed. She sent garments to clothe Mordecai so that he might take off his sackcloth, but he would not accept them. Then Esther called for Hathach, one of the king's eunuchs, who had been appointed to attend to her, and ordered him to go to Mordecai to learn what this was and why it was. Hathach went out to Mordecai in the open square of the city in front of the king's gate. And Mordecai told him all that had happened to him and the exact sum of money that Haman had promised to pay into the king's treasuries for the destruction of the Jews. And Mordecai also gave him a copy of the written decree issued in Susa for their destruction, that he might show it to Esther and explain it to her and command her to go to the king to beg his favor and plead with him on behalf of her people. And Hathach went and told Esther what Mordecai had said. Then Esther spoke to Hathach and commanded him to go to Mordecai and say, all the king's servants and all the people of the king's provinces know that if any man or woman goes into the king inside the inner court without being called, there is but one law, to be put to death, except the one to whom the king holds out the golden scepter so that he may live. But as for me, I have not been called to come into the king these 30 days. Okay. So, the proclamation goes out. It's read in Susa. What is Mordecai's reaction? Despair. He's walking around crying. And how is he dressed? Sackcloth and ashes. What does that mean? Yeah. You're not out to impress anybody, are you? It's a sign of mourning, a sign of despair. And he does it. He can't go into the king's court, but he goes right to the gate of the king's court so that everybody can see him. You got to hand it to Mordecai. He's not ashamed of who he is. And he's not one who's going to back down on his convictions. And I love that. But he sits right there, and he sits there. That's not only can the king's people see him, but the entrance to the gate is where all the important business takes place. You know, it's like I explained it last time, it's like the cloakroom of the Senate. The deals don't get done on the Senate floor. They get done in the cloakroom and in the hallways of Congress. Things would get done at the gate of the king's court. And then they'd go in and present it to the king. All the deals were struck out here. And not only is Mordecai mourning, but who else is? All the Jews. Yeah. Everyone. And granted, if I heard, hey, in a year you're going to be slaughtered, you and your children and your grandma, and they're going to take all your stuff, although at that point, who cares? But all this stuff is going to happen to you, and all these people are motivated because they can take your stuff. And by the way, there's $42 million in it to make sure we have all the resources we need. I'm a little upset. I'm just going to say that. And what is Esther's response to all that? Well, first of all, what is Esther's response to Mordecai sitting in sackcloth and ashes? Yeah, it's like, here, have some clothes. You're embarrassing me, cousin. Come on, cuz, let's go. You're going to get in trouble. People are going to see you. She does that. So, and when she sends her ladies to it, then she sends Hathach to go talk to him. And what does Mordecai do with Hathach? Yeah, he spills it all. Yeah, he's like, hey, here's the plan. Here's how much money it's going to be. Here's what's going to happen to all of us. Tell Esther. And what does he want Esther to do? Yeah, save us by going to the king. Just go in, and I love he says, beg his favor and plead with him on behalf of her people. What is Esther's response to that? Well, first, why is it such a big deal that she go into the king? He is. But she's going to go in there and tell him what? I'm a Jew. Yeah, he might kill me. And not only am I a Jew and he might kill me for that, but if he doesn't hold out that scepter to me, I die. And he hadn't had anything to do with me for 30 days. I haven't been called to talk to him, to see him, to spend the night with him, nothing for 30 days. I don't know where I stand with this man. I am scared to death. And she's still a young woman. If she goes in there and he accepts her in, then she's going to beg on behalf of her people, which he doesn't know that she's a Jew yet. Why doesn't he know that yet? Yeah. It just never came up in casual conversation. 9 years, nothing ever happened. But Mordecai said, don't tell anybody. Remember, Mordecai kind of knows there's something going on in the court about with Jews, and there's this undercurrent going on. But he repeatedly told her over and over and over not to tell. Then all of a sudden, now he says, go tell him. What changed? Yeah, right? Yeah, at that point, he really has no other options. King's not going to listen to him. He's not obviously not going to listen to the thousands or millions of Jews that are in his provinces and in his country. Maybe he'll listen to the queen, right? And I just love the fact that she's just downright scared, and I can't blame her. I haven't seen him in 30 days. I'm scared. I don't know if he favors me. I don't know if I've done something wrong. I just don't know. Is she being reasonable, or is she being cowardly? Why? Okay. Hmm. Right. Right. I mean, why? 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 And yeah, because we've seen Queen Vashti just refuse one thing. Hey, don't come dance before all my drunken friends. I always say dance. He didn't say dance. Come out and present yourself before all my drunken friends. He said no, and it all ended. Um, so yeah. Oh no, chattel. Right. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, the good old days. But so she is reasonable. I think it's very reasonable, but it's also, I mean, I can argue Jeremy's point too. She's being kind of a coward, but I can remember times being, I know my dad loves me, and I know my parents love me, but it would be hard to go in and approach them with something very difficult. Okay. Okay. So right. Okay. So hold on to that thought as we continue in verse 12. And they told Mordecai what Esther had said, the fact that, hey, I'm scared. I haven't seen him in 30 days. Okay. And it said, then Mordecai told them to reply to Esther, do not think to yourself that in the king's palace you will escape any more than all the other Jews. For if you keep silent at this time, relief and deliverance will rise for the Jews from another place. But you and your father's house will perish. And who knows whether you have not come to the kingdom for such a time as this? Then Esther told them to reply to Mordecai, go gather all the Jews to be found in Susa, and hold a fast on my behalf, and do not eat or drink for 3 days, night or day. I and my young women will also fast as you do. Then I will go to the king, though it is against the law, and if I perish, I perish. Mordecai then went away and did everything as Esther had ordered him. So I love the fact that Hathach gets back to Mordecai and he's like, listen, she doesn't know about going into the king. She can die. The king hadn't talked to her in 30 days, hadn't had anything to do with her. She's scared. And Mordecai just gets straight to the point. No, I mean, hey, don't think you're going to be safe. Yeah, you're going to die. Don't think that you will be protected just because you're in the palace. I mean, because honestly, Esther's thinking, I mean, I'm going to be okay. Because at it's easy to get really selfish in a situation like that. I'm looking out for number one, number two, three, four, five, six, seven, a million. Yeah, maybe they'll be all right. But she feels safe because she's the queen. She lives in the palace, but like we talked about, she's not safe because she's the queen. You look at the Vashti. She wasn't safe. Her position wasn't safe. She didn't die. She just got kicked out of the king's palace and had to live in her own palace with her own ladies away from the king and never got called into him again. Oh, darn. But, yeah. And I just love the fact that he lets her know, no matter what she might think, no matter what hope she's leaning on, that she's going to be okay, that's not the truth. And even though she has, and he says, don't think you're going to be safe. Has she told anybody that she's a Jew? No. So, well, I was going to say, how would it be found out? Yeah. The eunuch knows. The ladies, her ladies know because she's been talking to Mordecai, and everybody knows that Mordecai is a Jew. It's not like it's a great state secret here. It's just that Ahasuerus doesn't know, and Haman doesn't know at this point, right? And even if nobody did know in the big realm of things come out. It's somebody's going to know. Somebody's going to find out. Yes. So eventually, people then know that she's a Jew. It just hasn't gotten all the way up the ladder yet. So he's like, don't even think you're going to be safe. Someone's going to turn on you. You think all these people are your friends? No. They can get your stuff. She's got some cool stuff. She's queen. Right? And I love that not only does Mordecai say, you're not going to be safe, but if you keep silent in verse 14, at this time, relief and deliverance will rise for the Jews from another place. God has got this. He's not going to let this happen. This is what Mordecai is saying. That's some faith right there. That is trust in your God. God's not going to let this happen. He's going to send help from somebody else. But my favorite verse, one of my favorite verses in the Bible. Who knows whether you have not come to the kingdom for such a time as this? Each one of us is put exactly where we are for a very specific reason at a very specific time. Whether we see it or not, God has put us where we are to be used by him for his glory. Mordecai is telling her, listen, you can refuse, but you're going to miss out. We can refuse to talk to our neighbor about Christ. We can refuse to let our faith be known to those around us at work or whatever, but we will miss out on the blessings that come from sharing that. We will miss out on the blessings of being used by God. Even if we're rejected, we will miss out on the blessings from God. We're not rejected by God, but rejected by the world. And so he's saying, listen, maybe, I don't know, but maybe this is why you're here. Of all the women that were brought before the king and brought into his bedroom and sent out to the concubine group, you were chosen. Maybe it was for this. Maybe it wasn't just because you were a hottie. Maybe it's because God chose you for this. All right? And I love the fact that I want to give her credit. Esther listens to that, and she could have said, yeah, but I'm still scared. Yeah, but I if I go in there, he may kill me. But what does she say? What's her plan? Yeah, let's fast. Let's draw close to God. And she doesn't even say ask for his favor. She says let's just draw close to God. Let's commune with him. Let's seek him. We'll seek God's mercy. We'll seek God's grace. We'll fast for 3 days and 3 nights. Oh my gosh, I can't imagine. That's a long time to go without eating. I'm just saying. And I think I was reading that. I thought, how many times? I'm going to say we, but I mean me. How many times do we seek prayer when we need to make a decision, or do we just rely on our own wisdom and just jump in? sometimes we need to take that break and say, okay, give me 3 days. Let me really seek God for 3 days. Or sometimes 3 minutes. Let me seek God for 3 minutes instead of just jumping in. I'm really good at jumping into something. That's why I'm sitting right here. No, just kidding. Just kidding. I prayed, I promise. But there's a lot of times when we rely on our own wisdom and we'll listen to everybody else and we don't seek God. And Esther said, not only am I going to seek God, but Mordecai, you seek God. Get every Jew you know to seek God during this time for 3 days. And what's she going to do after 3 days? Yeah. And I'm going to go talk to him, and if I perish, I perish. One of the great lines in the history of the Jewish people came from Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego when they refused to bow down to the king. And he said, I'm going to throw you in that fiery furnace. And they said, God will save us. And even if he doesn't, we're still not going to bow down. That's the same attitude Esther has here. God will save me. He will protect me. But even if he doesn't, I'm going to do what needs to be done. I'm going to stand up and do it. And too many times in my own life, I'd said, okay, God, yeah, but. And God goes, just follow me. But God, but, look at all the things that could happen to me. And God's like, you ain't going to die. but I still make up those excuses. So she is resolved to go in there and do what needs to be done. And so let's go on. Chapter 5. So on the third day, how many days were they fasting? 3 days. So on the third day, Esther puts on her royal robes and stood on the inner court of the king's palace in front of the king's quarters while the king was sitting in his royal throne, on his royal throne, not in his royal throne, on his royal throne inside the throne room opposite the entrance of the palace. So you got kind of the picture of everything. King's sitting here. He's looking out the palace, the gate, the door to the palace room. Esther's standing out there in all her royal robes, peeking in. It's like your little kid when you're first thing in the morning, they look in your bedroom door, see if they can come in, that type of thing. And you go, no, go back to bed. All right. So, it says, and when the king saw Esther standing in the court, she won favor in his sight. And he held out to Esther the golden scepter that was in his hand. Then Esther approached and touched the tip of the scepter. And the king said to her, what is it, Queen Esther? What is your request? It shall be given you even to half of my kingdom. And Esther said, if it please the king, let the king and Haman come today to a feast that I have prepared for the king. Then the king said, bring Haman quickly, so that we may do as Esther has asked. So the king and Haman came to the feast that Esther had prepared. And as they were drinking wine after the feast, the king said to Esther, what is your wish? It shall be granted you. And what is your request? Even to the half of my kingdom it shall be fulfilled. Then Esther answered, my wish and my request is, if I have found favor in the sight of the king, and if it please the king to grant my wish and to fulfill my request, let the king and Haman come to the feast that I will prepare for them, and tomorrow I will do as the king has said. All right. So it takes her 3 days to go into the king. They've prayed, they've fasted for 3 days. She gets all gussied up. She doesn't hesitate. She does what she says she's going to do. And she's had 3 days to think about it. But she's also had 3 days to listen to God about it. So she decides, she goes in there, no matter the consequence. She gets all gussied up. She stands in the doorway, and what happens? Out comes the scepter. It says she wins the favor of the king. It's not the first time that's happened with her. The king looks at her, he's like, dude, that's my bride. That's my queen right there, right? And I love his response. What is it, Queen Esther? What is your request? It should be given to you even up to half of my kingdom. Again, what does that tell you about the king and his feelings for Esther? Yes. Even though he hasn't seen her in 30 days, he sees her and all the good stuff comes back. He's thinking about, man, that's my queen. And you kind of get this sense that he really does care for her. Now, it never says that anywhere, I know, but you're not going to offer somebody half your stuff if you don't like them. Yes. doing a lot of drinking. Yeah. The wine will do it. So yeah, he is very cavalier with it. And I also think, okay, even if he gave her half his kingdom, what kind of control does she really have? It's a lot of kind of just words. But the fact that he said, "What do you want? What is it this time?" It's not that type of thing. It's, "Oh, Queen Esther, man, what is your request? What is it?" And what is her request? Yeah, yeah, yeah. Let's have some salad. But she wants the king to come, and who else? What is that going to do to Haman's ego? Wow, the queen invited the king and me by name. She wants me to be there. Yeah. And so they gather for the feast. Why doesn't she just ask then? Why didn't she just say, "Hey, king, listen, honey, sweetie, husband oh mine, there's this plot." And why didn't she spill the beans then? Because the king has offered her something at this feast. What is it? Yeah. He's like, he has opened the door for her, right? You always think, man, if they just give me a hint, if they give me a clue that it's okay, then I'll say it. And he throws it open and say, man, even up to half of my kingdom, I'll give it to you. And he says it again. He said it in the throne room, and now he says it again. So, again, we see that he is very fond of her. And he really does want to please her and make her happy. And he's kind of showing off, I bet, a little bit for Haman, too. I mean, that's what guys do. We just do. But Esther doesn't spill the beans yet. She doesn't do that. Why not? What does she ask for instead? Yeah. Okay, we've done lunch. Yeah. It's like you ask them, you want to do coffee? Yeah, okay, but then if that goes well, let's do dinner. Yeah, so yeah, let's do dinner. And I love the fact that she's like, hey, if I found favor in your sight, and if it pleases you to grant my wish and fulfill my request, let's do dinner. Bring Haman again. And why does she ask for another feast? That's verse 9. And we'll get to that next week. How's that for a cliffhanger? Dun, dun, dun! All right. Any questions or comments on that this week? I'm going to ask you again, does this make sense? If it doesn't, it's Christy's fault because she looked over it. Okay. All right. Again, I love the study of Esther. I think sometimes we think of it as just a neat story, but there's a lot of meat there. A lot of meat on that bone. But I do love it, and I love the fact that it just shows God really is sovereign. He's everywhere through this thing. Even though he's not mentioned, he's everywhere. And I like that. All right. Any other questions, comments? All right, let's pray. We'll go get children. Dear God, I love you, and I'm so glad that as we look through Esther, we see your hand there. And dear God, I pray that as we look at our lives and the goings on and around us, that we see your hand there too. Maybe we don't understand it. Maybe we don't even like it. But we know that you're in control, and we can praise you for that. Dear God, help us to lean into that. Help us to lean into the fact that you have a plan, and it's perfect. Help us to desire to be a part of that plan in a way that honors and glorifies you, dear Lord. Be this as we head out tonight, as we go to work or wherever tonight and tomorrow and throughout the rest of the week, dear Lord. Just help us to be a beacon of your love